Hi sweet friend, welcome back to my channel. My name is Watercolor Smith and I'm the artist behind Color Snack. In today's tutorial, I am back with two more flowers. So this is the Prairie Coneflower and the Strawberry Cactus. So it's a continuation of my Texas Wildflower series. A quick reminder, sweet friend, that making art, no matter your skill level or experience, is really good for your mental health because it helps you disconnect from your thoughts by allowing you to focus on what's in front of you. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial and treat it as a way to explore and be playful inside of your sketchbook. Our next Texas wildflower is a prairie coneflower. So it's going to look something like this, and we're going to basically do similar techniques with our petals like we did here for the purple coneflower. And before we do the flower, let us practice a little bit. So let's see, I'm gonna grab, so the prairie flower has more of like a reddish orange. So I can grab some red and a little bit of orange on my palette. And it's okay, I'm already like using some of that magenta too. And essentially, you know, we're gonna press down and then lift off. So we're not going to do a lot or drag the brush very much, like very little, because the prairie coneflower has very short petals compared to the purple coneflower where the petals were much longer. So this is going to be basically us pressing down and then lifting off. And you see how you're gonna get these marks. Well, you can always go in after we paint the initial ones and just kind of fill them in with more paint, kind of like this. All right, so we're ready to paint our prairie flower, and I'm gonna start with the cone portion first, and I will start with yellow ochre, and this one is going to be kind of like so we're going to start with two parallel lines, kind of like this, and then we're going to have a rounded top, and then I'm going to fill this in. So it's gonna almost like resemble like a little pill shape, if you will. Like it's almost an oval, but it's definitely like got, you know, like rectangular. It's like a tall oval situation. And I'm going to grab some of this darker brown in my palette and drop that on one side of the flower. So my light source is coming from the left hand side, and that's where my highlight is going to be. So I'm adding more of the darker colors on the opposite side. And I know it's bleeding in together, and that's okay. I'm going to clean off my brush, and then I'm going to press down, clean again, press down, lift off. There we go. Might add a little bit more, touch more of the yellow ochre here. There we go. So that's the cone, and next I'm gonna add a little bit more orange and red, like a touch of alizarin red, crimson in here, and maybe also a little bit of magenta since I already had it. And let's see, I'm gonna do 4 petals. So I'm gonna start with the one on this side first. So I'm gonna press down and just slightly drag. I'm gonna do the next one, press down, and then the next one. And feel free to like also turn your paper if that's easier as well. So now that I have my kind of primary little shapes, I'm going to add more color to them. And even maybe like make them a little bit wider. If you're not happy with, you know, having like too much of a blank space in between the petals, you can always kind of like extend them or expand them. And let's see, I'm gonna clean off my brush, and of course I wanna keep my highlights or add them. So I'm gonna press down, lift off, clean, press down, lift off, and clean again. And repeat that for every petal. And actually, I don't mind, like I liked some of this orange that bled into this top portion. Like you can kind of like blend it in a little bit more if you like. But I like that there's just like a tiny hint of it in there. And another thing that I forgot to add, so the Prairie Coneflower has little yellow edges on the petals. So I'm gonna grab a touch of yellow, and I'm just gonna add like a few little brush marks here. And they kind of are bleeding in to the red, so it's kind of hard to tell that they're yellow, but you can kind of go in and add more yellow here. There we go. And then finally, we're gonna grab a little green and add a stem here. And personally, I don't remember what kind of leaves this flower has, so I'm just gonna leave it with the stem like that. But I think this would be such a fun way to add a lot of these prairie coneflowers together in like a bouquet with other flowers as well. One last thing that we could do here too is to add a little bit more dimension to this side. So I'm just gonna drop in a touch more of the darkest brown that I have. So if you kind of see a harsh line when you're painting, you can always come in and kind of like smudge it up or blend it in. And maybe with a touch more of the lighter color, which is my yellow ochre. Help me blend this area a little bit more. And of course, I want to make sure my highlight is still present. So I can press down and lift off. For the strawberry cactus, we're going to start with the basic kind of main cactus shape, which is going to be, you know, we're going to start with a line, and we're going to have a slight curve, and we're going to, so it's not going to be like exactly two parallel lines to each other, but maybe a slight curve too, because, you know, cacti plants are still plants, they're organic, so they're not going to be super perfect straight lines, which is great for us because we don't have to worry about that. And I'm just going to kind of like make this area a little bit more narrow at the bottom. And let's see, I'm going to add another shape here next to it, slightly smaller, and maybe it can be connected. And then I'm going to do two little hands, so they're essentially, these shapes are going to resemble kind of like little triangle shapes. One here and one here. Maybe I'm going to add one more here. And while this area is still a little bit wet, but it's starting to dry, so I didn't add a ton of water or pigment here, but I'm going to add some darker green that just to kind of give the impression of the cacti needles. And they're all gonna like stem from kind of the center point here at the top. And then same here, slightly curved lines. So we're just giving the impression of those partitions and the cactus plant and the needles. If some of these lines become kind of blurry, you can always, clean off your brush and drag it along to reinforce those lighter areas. But remember, you have to clean the brush after every single time. So that's kind of the main cactus shape. Now for the strawberry flower, so it's going to be very kind of pink, magenta. I might add a touch of orange just to kind of like warm up the magenta a little bit. And I'm just going to very quickly kind of add some of these brush marks. So I'm not like overthinking this. Try to be fairly quick and loose, and then add a few extra little details in the back. But basically, we want to kind of give the impression that these are flowers, there's petals. So the quicker you go, the easier it'll get. And this area has already dried, that's why the pink didn't bleed into the green, whereas here this happened. And if that happens for you, you can clean off the brush and you can lift that off. So kind of erase that a little bit and go back into the green. So now we're back to our shape. And I always recommend, my light source always comes from the left, only because it's easier for me since I'm a lefty, but yours doesn't have to be. And you can either lift off a highlight or you can darken the opposite side, which makes the shape pop a little bit more. So sometimes I like to just go in with a darker color or like another layer and reinforce that. And you'll notice this green already kind of bled into the red again. So that will happen if we don't wait for the color next to it to dry completely. And sometimes that may be annoying, but I actually kind of like, when I'm working fairly loose and quick, it's kind of fun to see these accidental bleeds. And let's see, I might add a couple more layers of these flowers here. Just a few petals. Kind of keeping it fairly loose and simple. If you enjoyed this tutorial, be sure to subscribe to my channel so that you'll be notified whenever I share new watercolor videos.